Numb Ice Push. The avoidance of feeling. I was trying to feel, or at least I thought I was. People think it's funny when you wake up on the ground, maybe because they know how close to that they are themselves, and it's easier to laugh at it and call it a good time than see what is really happening. Drinking until the alcohol is gone, because it's nearly empty anyway. Just one more beer. Going to different convenience stores and grocery stores and liquor stores to buy 30 packs of Bud Light and Crown Royal nearly every other day because you don't want to be judged. All the while you are judging yourself. When you do finally stop, the worker at the grocery store asks you why you aren't buying your juice anymore. And he sees you. Boiling eggs in the middle of the night and passing out before they are done. The kids coming out to see what is going on when they smell the stench of burning eggs pan dry. You get the guts to tell your friend about this, the one you felt you could confide in and that you thought you had a problem, and they laugh it off. Discounted your feelings. Didn't want to see what was really there. And the eating. Snacking in the middle of the night because of drinking. I was hiding in plain sight. Numbing through alcohol and food, not wanting to face what was wanting to be seen, blaming myself for everything that ever happened anywhere. That's a lot of unnecessary baggage. Holding it all in. My body was a protective shell, holding all the feelings. Drinking every night, functioning at work the next day. I didn't want to be a part of the team I was working on anyway. I didn't really want to be seen. Just do my job and keep my head mostly down. I was a shell of myself. But there would be moments of heat, flashes of frustration boiling up inside of me. Not at my work, but at what I was holding back. Wanting to be relevant, wanting to be important to someone, wanting to be chosen. But I wasn't even choosing me. I quit drinking the first time in December 2020. I started my weight loss journey, wanting to feel better, and that had to go. I drank very limited, if at all, until I moved in with my mom and sister and brother-in-law. It got really hard to resist being in that environment. Not only was it what we did, but a lot of buried emotions, traumas were coming to the surface, wanting to be seen and felt so I could transmute them, so I could start to heal myself. But I didn't understand that at the time. I was barely starting my waking up. So I was driven in exercising and limiting my food intake. I lost a ton of weight. But all this time, I was still numbing, just different. It was in a way I was commended for. You could really see the transformation in my body. But my soul was still not being seen. I was exercising obsessively, and it was amazing. But I was still running away, numbing. The universe started to send me messages, and thankfully I was starting to listen. One morning, while riding my bike before work, I had a pretty gnarly crash on my bike. The universe was slowing me down. I ended up partially tearing my bicep muscle from my rotator cuff and doing some damage there too. This was on my left side, the mother side of my body. Of my body. This was where I was needing to do a lot of emotional healing. I had to have surgery. I read about the symbolism involved, the signs from the universe, and tucked them away. And I rode my bike even further. I walked even longer. I hiked even more. I was feeling my body in a way I hadn't in years, and yet I was still not in my body. I knew surgery was going to slow me down, and I knew I was going to have to go inward eventually. Amazingly, in this time, I was introduced to feng shui and Chinese astrology charts. Things were starting to align. So much we can only see looking back. And I was guided to sign up to get certified as a feng shui consultant. A hummingbird confirmed the decision. Some months after surgery, and I was laid off from my job. This created a position to quit the weight loss company I was working with and go on my own, while eating and exercising and all the things. I did okay for a minute, but then my boundaries were easily trampled, and I started into the old eating and drinking habits. It's just a little this time. It's been a rough week. It will be okay this time. We haven't partied in a while. What a day. I need a shot. Our team scored. I need a shot. Let's do a shot. Our team won. Let's do a shot. A lot of fun was had with that. So many fun nights, playing, talking, deep conversations. My problem was it didn't stop there. What I really noticed when I welcomed alcohol back into my life was that I had already started to change. And I literally couldn't handle it the same way anymore. But I tried. Lord, I tried. I forgot more nights. Couldn't tell you many conversations. There were some nights I would record the conversation because I felt I needed to remember it the next day and knew it would be gone. Woke up on the ground more times than I can count. Things really started to get tense in the family. Lots of stress situations, and alcohol didn't help. Well, maybe it did. It brought out some deep shit that needed to be seen. And at this point, I had started down a deep path of shadow work and healing, starting to really see myself, starting to trigger things within my family that they were needing to see, the mirror that we are for each other. And the things that were really triggering to me were showing me where I was needing to look within. I had some big realizations that drinking with my family was not helping me on my growth path, and it was only creating hurt with our family unit. So I quit. Again. And I did pretty good for a bit. Then I would reintroduce a shot here or there, or a shot and a beer, or just a beer, then maybe 2 beers. Then I'd be back to drinking too much again. I'd drink a little on my own or with friends and not family. As I was selling my home and going through immense stress and transition, I started drinking some again, wanting to quiet my mind so I could feel, or so I thought, or so I told myself. Heading out traveling alone, scared and not sure what I was doing. Ava about died, feeling so responsible for that, hurting, knowing I was where I was meant to be, but not allowing myself to trust. I would have a few beers every so often, not a lot. I was really trying to not rely on it, really not drinking much, but it was still there. I started to realize it wasn't really helping. It was more of a crutch and definitely not helping me drop into trust of the universe. I threw full beers away more times than I can count, vowing I was done, and then buying a few more down the road as I was traveling alone. But all the while, I was changing, deeply changing at a cellular level. I was releasing so much, transmuting pain and trauma, finding self-forgiveness and deep love of self, which was showing up in my love for my family too, seeing them as who they truly are. I started to notice the feelings in me when I felt I needed to just have a beer to settle my system down, to recognize the slippery slope alcohol is for me. How else can I settle my system down? What would be the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? For real. The day after my 51st birthday in Mount Shasta, California, I walked into a crystal shop and happened upon a tarot reader that was just setting up her table. I asked if she was available and had a reading with her. We engaged in this reading for a little over an hour, and as we were finishing up and I was paying her, she all of a sudden looks at me and says right into my eyes, "Be careful with alcohol. It's your kryptonite." And I felt that to my very core. To my core. The night before, after my birthday hike up Mount Shasta, I had a beer while setting up camp. That was the last beer. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 more in my cooler, and I got rid of them that day. I quit that day, June 30th, 2024. Until that point, it had been hard to be around my family and not drink. That day, a switch was flipped. I knew to my core that it was no longer something that would help me. I knew I no longer needed that energy in my life. The lifeline was cut. I tell all of this because this was a process, showing myself I could quit over and over again, and showing myself the why, really allowing myself to see the reasons for the relationship I had with alcohol, and allowing myself to lovingly release it. Not based on a story or a way of being, but just because it was no longer in resonance. Just because it was no longer in resonance. Throughout this process, over 3.5 years, I learned to have grace and patience with myself. I learned how to protect my energy. I learned how to create safe boundaries, and I learned how to choose me. I was bravely choosing me. Asking the questions, what is wanting to be seen here? What is wanting to be felt and released? I realized alcohol was really creating a space for me to live in the traumas and hold them and love them and keep them tight to me. I wasn't ready to let the traumas go yet. They were my story. They were who I was. And if I let them go, then who am I really? Alcohol helped me hold on to those stories and feel the pain of my life experiences without releasing, numbing the desire to let it go and hold in those feelings in the cage around my heart until I realized I was not those stories. Those stories happened to help me grow, to challenge me, to become more than the story. To rise in my power, to be the leader that I am. I still find myself in those numbing states. I've noticed it with food occasionally. I'm looking at what my body is wanting me to see. Sometimes I do just need to have some really good grounding food, cheese or chocolate. But when it starts to be an everyday thing, that's when I start to ask the questions, what is ready to be released? Alcohol was that friend that was there when you needed them most, until you realize you no longer resonate with them anymore, and they just kind of slip out of your life, popping up every once in a while to say hey, and then slip back under the current again. And then you just stop thinking about them at all. I've released many relationships in my life. Some of them hung around long after the humanness of them was gone, but their energy remained, until I was ready to let it go altogether, slipped away, floating down the river, flowing, flow. For good or bad, you knew what you were going to get when drinking. Thinking about this, referring to alcohol as that friend who was reliable and always there. I've been let down by friends. There's bugs, sorry. I've been let down by... Okay, sorry. Thinking about this, referring to alcohol as that friend who was reliable and always there. I've been let down and bailed on by friends a lot in my life. It hurt a lot. Those times hit my abandonment wound hard. I didn't know why it hurt so bad at the time, but I get it now. But alcohol never bailed and actually got me through some pretty hard times. Places within I couldn't go yet. I wasn't ready. But as I started to let myself see those hard truths and love those shadowy places in me, and let each version of me have a seat at the table and speak her truth, so we could transmute that shit together, I didn't need to numb those feelings so much anymore. I found I could see them and love them and love them and really find deep compassion and love for myself, all parts of myself, and hold little Heather and fucking love that little girl. Let her feel what that means to be truly loved and held. I stopped resonating with the need for alcohol and lovingly released it out of my life. No longer just a distraction, making room for more aligned energies to come into my life. Thank you.